Beautiful Friday afternoon. Um, my name is Sam Stark. I am the moderator for this Q&A, but you're not here for me. Neil, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Neil Clarke. I'm the publisher and editor of Clarkesworld Magazine and the several anthologies, including the Best Science Fiction of the Year series. I'm one of your guests of honor, sort of, spotlight publisher. And thank you for coming.
So we're going to talk about publishing things and all that here in a minute, but I was wondering, could you tell us a little bit about yourself outside of publishing? Like, what are some fun things you like to do, just off the cuff?
But
That's all you do.
there's more to life than just publishing. Oh my God. No, it's kind of boring. No, it's like I work a lot, but the rest of the time is largely with my family or yeah, mostly with them. I work from home, so I don't see a lot of other people. So this is kind of nice. Let's see. Yeah, telling my private life should not be this difficult. Sometimes you really. I simplified my life a lot after I had a very significant heart attack that almost killed me over a decade ago, and that sort of pushed me over into working as an editor full time and out of my old life. My other area that I'm interested in is technology. That was my career prior to this, and I still enjoy working in different aspects. I was solving problems with technology is sort of a hobby. So, and it sort of dovetails into the publishing work I'm doing and why I'm sort of on the front lines of the battle with AI, because, well, I'm also a cyborg, so, well, who else are you going to send in? But yeah, so I have two kids who are, oh my God, the youngest is going to be able to drink this week. So this is going to be fun. My oldest is interested in being a teacher of English as a second language and has language skills I do not, which is probably ironic given the amount of international work I do with translation. I can only speak one language, and I'm really awful at other ones. And so my kids have skills that I don't, and we don't know where they came from. We'll just attribute it to the things we made them watch and do when we were raising them. Yeah, so that's, and my wife as well is in the picture. She works from home too, and she's sick of seeing me. So she's really enjoying a nice vacation this weekend.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry for putting you on the spot like that.
No, it's okay.
Okay, so let's go into the meat and potatoes here. So Clarkesworld is mostly what everybody knows you for, obviously. So can you give us a timeline? Can you tell us how it came about?
Let's see. So one Thursday in July of 2006, I decided to go to ReaderCon, which is a convention outside of Boston, and I was going to see a friend of mine. I was running an online bookstore and working for a university at the time. And one of the things, I've always been a short fiction junkie. So the bookstore that I had probably the largest selection of genre magazines. There were over 100 that were either currently publishing or out of print, and I was selling the publisher's back catalog for them. But one of the things I was doing was experimenting. I would reach out to the publishers and see if they'd want to run sample content, so a free story or two, to see if we could help promote either subscriptions to their magazines or sales of their back issues that way. And when I got to ReaderCon, one of the publishers was there, Sean Wallace of Prime Books, who was running Fantasy Magazine at the time. And that was one of the magazines we were doing a test with. So he started asking me about that. Conversation shifted to sci-fiction, which was the SciFi channel's probably the best known of the online magazines of the time. It was edited by Ellen Datlow. It was phenomenal stories. The only one that was getting any respect in the field. But they were going under because the SciFi channel decided to pull funding. Somehow, this conversation just spiraled into why the online field was such a disaster area. And from my perspective, it was because publishing didn't understand the technology. It doesn't understand how to make things work in an online market. I had been working in online education and other online bookstore and things like that, so I had some ideas. And by the end of the evening, he had convinced me to launch a magazine. This is ironic. I only have a computer science degree. I took one English course in college because my university did not believe in science fiction. Still does not, and does not recognize me, and I do not recognize them for their participation in this. But by the end of the weekend, we had the magazine fully staffed. 3 months later, we had our first issue out, and we've hit every monthly deadline since. And that's almost 18 years later. So we have 2 birthdays. We consider our mid-July date at ReaderCon as our official birthday or anniversary. But the first issue came out in October 1st, 2006. And it was 2 stories and a cover. We started small and slowly grew over time.
Awesome. This is actually a question that I've been wondering. Can you walk us through the kind of behind the scenes, like from when a submission enters your domain to publication?
Okay. So I wrote the submission software we have. So I will go in, usually first thing in the morning, and start reading slush. I will find the AI submission, scream at the ceiling, and throw it away and ban the user. Then move on, find something that's written by real people. We get approximately 1,100 to 1,200 submissions a month of the legitimate ones. The AI submissions can go from anywhere from 200 to 1,100 or 1,200, depending on the current YouTube fads. And then if we find a story we like, it tends to go into a second round of review. So if you've ever submitted work to us and you see in your status that you're in round 2, you are the lucky 2 to 3%, the top 2 to 3% of the submissions process. Those will kick around a little bit longer. We'll have a discussion, and then the ones that I want, I will send out contracts to. Timeline from there is within 1 to 3 months that story is most likely to be published. We have a very short lead time. Sometimes it might even be later that month if I'm particularly enthusiastic or you fit just the right hole that somebody else opened up. Because there's always, it accelerated a bit during the pandemic. You always need a plan B, a plan C, and a plan D. Because if somebody misses deadline, you need to substitute someone else in. So the editing process is whatever it takes. Sometimes it's 1 round of edits, sometimes it's multiple. It's really dependent on the questions, and my editing style is largely questions. I might point out things that I might say that something's phrased awkwardly, but generally it's like, why are you doing this? Can you explain how this works? Because it doesn't make much sense, make sense to me. But it might not need to be corrected in the story. I just need to know to make sure that the story is consistent through. So that'll go back and forth as long as it takes. Then it'll go into a proofreader, a third-party proofreader who has never seen the story before, because by the time we're done with the edits, I am not capable of that. I will miss the mistakes. So she is our saving grace, our secret weapon for catching those errors. Then I do all the production. We're a very small team. It's just there's Kate doing the nonfiction and podcast, and Sean and I working on the fiction. And then we have a couple of slush readers, and we usually contract out interviews. Arlie Sorg's been doing them for us lately. And that's pretty much all of us. So I end up doing all the production. I make the print edition, the ebook edition, the files that go to Barnes & Noble, the files that go to Amazon, and these are custom file formats. They don't want the ebook format. Even their own ebook format they don't want. So there's a lot of stuff. I'll spend at least 2 days doing prep work for a new issue. And then I'll preview the preliminary files to the authors, get their feedback, and then come Monday, I'll be publishing the next issue, just pushing buttons and saying, yes, send that file and that file. And then I have to do promotion, which is, no one likes that job. Well, if you do like that job, talk to me, because maybe we might have a job for you. But that's a headache in itself, though.
So I know that this is posted in several places, and people could look it up on their own. But if you could, just give us a quick in a general sense, what are you looking for when people are submitting? Okay. And what do we not send you? All
right. We'll start with the ones we don't want, because there's a nice long list on our website, and if you read our guidelines, you'll know this. And at the very, very tippy top of it is zombies. And there's a reason that is there, and it is not a challenge, it is not anything like that. The last item on the list is stories that include all of the above. That one is courtesy of my own children. Yes, because they attempted to submit those for months. Yeah. And they weren't the first and they weren't the last, but they were the one that pushed me over the edge. When your own kids do this to you. What we're looking for is a moving target. And even if I could tell you, okay, I do not want this. Let's pretend that I suddenly wanted robot ghost stories. I'm not asking for these. The reason, even if I wanted them, I wouldn't tell you, because that's all I would get. I would get nothing but robot ghost stories, and by the time you figured out how to write that story, I'd already have moved on. So now I'd be getting a ton of stories that I really am no longer interested in. Instead I will tell you what I tell our slush readers. I want to see the story that you remember the next day, the story that makes you think or feel something, because that's something that stands out from the crowd. If you've ever read Slush, there's a certain degree of sameness that happens in there, and the stories that stand out from that, the ones you remember, are the ones that that have the most promise to them. If any of you are writers, and I would strongly encourage you to seek out opportunities to be a slush reader at different places, because it is an excellent opportunity. It not only gives you a sense of what's going on in the current market, it gives you, you end up working with the editors. So one of the things that I do with all of our slush readers, if they pass something up, I tell them why I passed it back down. These are internal notes that are very blunt and should never, ever be shared with authors. They are meant as instructional pieces for training our people. But they get a sense of, where I found what string I might have pulled that unraveled what they thought was a good story, or, if it's something that I see as fixable, we might do a rewrite request or something like that. But there's a lot of the time where I don't see a path out on something after I've pulled a string. There's that aspect of the process of reading Slush is very useful for that communication. The other thing is, it's a massive boost in confidence, because every writer I know has imposter syndrome, and every editor I know has it too. You all think you're about here. I can tell that if you're in a panel on writing, or if you're coming to something like this, you're probably up here or higher. You're not all the way down here. And reading Slush, you will realize that, and you will begin to recognize the common problems, and eventually you'll start rejecting them on instinct. This problem I will recognize, I will recognize, I will recognize. And when that becomes instinct, that's when you can see it in your own work. So that is a really useful skill to have.
Also, highly recommend Slush reading. It's fantastic. So, Neil, you have a lot of very strong opinions on AI. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about it, because I remember when the AI stuff started coming in, and yeah.
So apologies to those of you who were just at my last panel. It's no secret I am not a big fan of AI. I'm actually not a big fan of Sam Altman or any of his cult, and I'll call it what it is. So yeah, she said I have strong opinions, and that is true on this one. I think that what they've, as a technology person, I think what they've done is irresponsible. I think it is unethical. They have stolen work from people I respect, people I don't respect, people, it doesn't matter who, it's like stolen from everybody, without their permission, without any compensation, and they're using it to basically cause harm to those same groups of people. They're promoting it in ways that aren't true. They're trying to make you believe that this is artificial intelligence when it's a large, technically, yeah, as a computer science major, I see why they're calling it that, but they're really using it in the marketing sense. It is not intelligent. It is not capable of replacing any of you. But your bosses might think it is because they're being sold these things. And I have great disdain for the terminology they use around it. I ended up having to shut down Clarkesworld submissions for a while last year and ended up becoming a international news story. We were on the BBC, we were on NPR, we were in Japanese television. We were everywhere, and I lost 2 weeks, I think, to reporters, and came out of that thinking, okay, now they've listened, what's going to happen next? And nothing has happened. Our politicians have let us down on this. They talk a good game, but they haven't actually done anything. The FTC is the only one I really respect in all of this because they've made overtures and actually spoken to the people who are impacted. Our government officials have been only speaking to the CIOs. They actually offered Steve Altman the opportunity to draft the legislation. Fortunately, he had the common sense to say no because, well, I think even he realized that he would probably get some backlash if he was the one writing this. But the fact of the matter is that it's just the ethics of the whole thing put me in a situation where I see too many people being harmed. From personal perspective as an editor, I am very much, we have open submissions. It means we want stories from everybody. We don't solicit stories very deliberately so. I'm not going to create a shortcut for someone to get to the front of the line. You get the best stories by being open to the widest possible audience. AI is not going to replace you in quality of writing, but it's going to flood the markets with garbage, spam, essentially. Imagine if you had to read your email and spam filters didn't exist. And imagine if that spam accelerated by 10 times. So now if you're trying to get emails from people you don't know yet, how are you going to find them? And that's the case I'm in. I want to discover new authors. We are quite proud of the authors we have published first, or their first professional sale, or even the first time we've published them if they've been published elsewhere. But we wouldn't have found them if the noise was there. We could so I don't want to have to go to a system where we can only work with the same authors we've always worked with. I love those authors, but they're not the only authors in the room. So that's my great fear, is that it will disrupt that. And when short fiction falls, that's a domino that cascades, because short fiction's the lab. That's where we get a lot of the new authors, a lot of the new ideas, and all of that gets tested in that space. It's one of the reasons I love working in that. It's one of the reasons I love reading it. A lot of movies get made off short fiction. A lot of novels deals end up coming off of short fiction, and a lot of careers are started there, and if that collapses, that's a much bigger problem. There's some people are like, oh, I don't care about short fiction, it doesn't matter. They don't realize what it actually does, the importance it plays in that ecosystem.
Thank you, Neil. I feel very validated in my angry feelings when you talk about AI. Is there anything that you would like to touch on or to plug before I open up the floor for questions?
Well, the Yugo finalists were announced this morning. I'm among them, but we've got 2 stories on the ballot, and I'm quite proud of them. Naomi Kritzer and Gushi, which is translated by Emily Jin, not Emily Jen as they posted it. But I'm very proud of them, and I think you should check out their work. I'm sure it'll be called to your attention in the months ahead. So.
Excellent, thank you. So I'm gonna open up the floor for questions now. We can do this a couple different ways. I can come up there and I can hand you the microphone, or I can just come down there and I can walk around. So if anybody needs assistance, I can come to you, but I'm perfectly capable of bringing you the microphone. You could. Ooh, I have a runner, my own special runner. So do we have any questions for Neil? Okay, take the mic, go.
So that's staggering, the amount of AI submissions. I didn't realize it was that many that you might get sometimes. What is, maybe this is a really ignorant question, but what do you think they're trying to do? Are they just trying to get money for this, or is it like, do they think they're gonna like have this career with computers, or what's the deal?
I would say that 99.9% of this is coming from outside the house of science fiction.
It's
right
not like
now.
a writer who's like,
no. Okay, so I will ban you if you submit stuff. People inside our community aren't going to do that. They're not going to send me something knowing I would ban them if they're caught. Not only that, by and large, you don't. When you're a professional or trying to be one, you don't deliberately go into a job interview or sending a submission and start doing things that you know that they're not going to want for you, because you don't want to develop a reputation. And this is a small community; they do talk, so you don't want to risk your career over something that stupid. And if you're already a writer, why would you want to use that? It's far worse than anything you can do. Don't believe the hype. But so this is largely coming from outside our community, and it's driven by side hustle people. I'm sure you've all encountered, if you've been on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok or whatever, and you've seen some of the videos that come by, there's always somebody who's waving money or saying, you can make quick money with, they're easy money, and high school kids, you could earn a lot of, and they're targeting these demographics of people who tend to be on the poorer side of various economies, largely outside the United States, where short fiction money, we get a good chuckle when someone says, "Oh yes, you can make a lot of money in short fiction."
That's what I was wondering.
I mean, I've had stories that we've paid over $3,000 for. That's not nothing, but it's also not something that you're going to be able to do frequently enough that you're going to make a living off of it. A story far shorter than that even gets a few $100s, is enough to pay for all the bills for some of these people for a month where they live. So we keep looking at things through a very U.S.-centric lens when we talk about this, but we're receiving stories globally. And the economics, we've had legitimate authors from some of these countries, and when I've sent them their payment, they're like, "This is going to pay for everything." For a week, and you don't think about it. We're lucky to have to be in a position not to think about that, but that's who they're targeting. They're targeting these people, and the people who are doing these side hustle people. They make their money off of either ad revenue on their YouTube channels or whatever, or they sell them courses when they come back and say it doesn't work. And they'll say, "Oh well, there's more tricks and tips that I can offer you, but they're in my $150 course, and if you sign up for that now, you'll figure out all the secrets." And I know these people they're scams, and so the people who are submitting to us, that are misled. They're also victims.
Thank you.
So talking about slush reading, how do you get into slush reading? Is it weird and rude to cold email someone about this?
No, it is not rude to do so because you're really offering a service. A lot of them will have open calls for it. I have a open application that I direct people to. So if you actually go to my personal website, which is neil-clarke.com, because I got to it too late, which is really embarrassing because my technology background, I really didn't think to jump on my name before somebody else got it. If you just go in the search bar and do slush application, several will come up, and it'll probably come up from like 2021 or whatever. They all link to the same form. I just haven't reposted it lately. And what happens, at least for us, I go through that application when we have an opening, and I look for somebody who's a good fit for what I think we're missing from the team. So there's a lot of questions on that form. I do advise that you answer all of them, because if you feel compelled to skip one of them is a deliberately designed to test whether or not you can tell me something that you think I might not want to hear. And I will say that you should answer all of those questions honestly, because there's no wrong answers. For example, if you can't tell me you don't like something that I like, you might not be prepared to be a slush reader, at least for me, because you need to challenge me, and that's that. Other places will announce on Twitter or various different social medias. They might even have a link that says, we don't have any openings now, but yeah, nobody does it the same way.
I was just, this kind of keys off of a question that was asked at, I think it was the opening ceremonies a little bit, but when you're picking stories out, do you ever, and then the story's out in the world, and it's the first time author that's getting press. Sorry. Say most of the reaction on, like, say, Twitter or whatever is largely negative, controversial. You have a small team. How do you handle supporting a writer through getting? You
can't put out an internet firestorm, but you can privately work with the author and be there for them. And that's all you can really do in those situations. One of the things that if you try to engage with an internet firestorm, you just extend it, even if you're right, because everyone thinks they're right, and you want. You have to work with the author, and you have to be there for them. You have to support them, and you have to listen to them. What do they need? And that's one of those things where when we see anything going up, we'll send a quick message off to somebody. I think I know which one you're talking about, and unfortunately, I was in the hospital during that one, which was really weird timing, really suspicious timing. The moment I went under anesthesia. I won't go into much detail on that particular instance because at this point, it's the author's preference. It's something that those are the worst moments as an editor, seeing something you care about, someone you care about, because you get to know people when you're working with them, and you don't want something like that to happen ever. So you do your best to try and avoid it. It's one of the reasons we use sensitivity readers as necessary. But something nobody tells you or no one really readily admits about sensitivity reading is that sensitivity readers are representing their particular perspective on something, and there's multiple perspectives within communities. No community's monolith, and so they may think something's perfectly acceptable that others in their community do not, and that's a risk you run, and you try to prepare your authors as much as you can when you think that there might be something that will things. And sometimes for example, sometimes we'll expect, oh, the right wing's really gonna hate this. They're gonna come after this author for it, and they're like, fine, bring it on. And then you're surprised when it comes from the other side for totally different reasons than you expected. We have, there's some passion right now about the story I recommended in opening ceremonies by Isabel Kim, Why Don't We Kill the Kid in the Ominous Hole? It's a tough story, and the response from her readers is usually, WTF? What were you thinking? But it's really well done, and but some people absolutely hate it, and art does that, and we've had some conversations. She's fine, but it's a lot, particularly if it's early in your career.
Oh, goodness. I was just wondering if you still give out I have been rejected by Neil Clarke cards. I've already got one. I mean, I did get it. I sent it in twice, and then he sent it back the next time. So, I mean, the story did earn two.
You got the card.
I got the card.
All right. Have you been rejected? 6 times. We have a winner.
Congratulations.
All right. So I should probably explain myself for those of you who don't know what happened. So I have wrong card. So I have these little cards that I carry with me at convention, always in my pocket, because they're. And on the front of it, you can't really see, it's kind of small, but it's a guy in a padded cell. And on the in a straitjacket, and on the wall are some monitors that say things like ignored and denied, and on the floor is a manuscript with his heart on it. And the bottom of the card says, rejected by Clarkesworld. Right? So the back of the card, it says, the bearer of this card has been officially rejected by Clarkesworld. Please be nice to them. This started because when I would go to conventions, we're not the most socially well-adjusted at times crowd. And so people would come up to me at a convention, and their introduction would be, you rejected me. I was bullied from grades 2 through 5, and that 5th grader is still in the back of my head, carefully watching for somebody to kill me. When someone approaches you like that, finger pointing, lunging forward, that little boy stands up and goes, run, run fast. And this kept happening for a while. And it doesn't happen anymore because I've told this story enough that I've apparently embarrassed everyone who was even considering it, which is good. It's just good. At least it's taught them some social etiquette. But so on my blog, I was joking around about these things and going, this is really weird that this keeps happening to me. Maybe I just need to have something that I can give people and so I quickly, without really much thought, took a piece of art that we had used as a cover and made up a mock business card and posted it on my blog and said, what do you think? And people were like, no, you have to do this. And the funny thing is that initially I knew that when I handed it to somebody, if they smiled, I was safe, and the little boy would sit back down. And after, since nobody actually does that anymore, I now use it as an icebreaker. Because for some reason, people feel intimidated coming up and talking to an editor. And I don't like that. So I tell people, if you don't know what to say, you want to say hi, you don't feel like you can just walk up and say hi, why don't you say, do you have any of those cards? And it's worked out really nicely because I've got to have wonderful conversations with so many different people because of it. And I get to meet the people who are sending the stories to me. It doesn't make your odds any better, but it's really nice to know and be reminded that there are actual people behind each of those.
Okay, right there and then back there.
Okay, I'm a bit nervous.
Don't be, it's fine.
Thank you. Actually, I'm from Korea, and I really appreciate that you publish all the sci-fi from all over the world, including Korea. So you've introduced some of other authors to the world, and it really thankful thing. And I want to ask you, as an editor, what do you think the special feature or appealing point of Korean sci-fi fiction compared to the American or Western world? Is it too?
Well, we managed to secure a grant to translate a number of Korean stories a few years back, and we're actually going to try and do it again. During the pandemic, there was just too much going on with AI and Amazon screwing us over last year. There was just again more distractions, but it's sort of on our radar. We really loved the stories that we got from Korea. People ask me very specific country-related questions often because we've done a lot of stuff from China. We've done a series from Korea. We've had stories published from translation in different things, several other languages as well. And it's a question where I feel like that it's usually what makes an X story X or Y or whatever. And my response is, well, what if we shifted this to what makes a story by a New Jersey author a New Jersey story? And there is no, I really don't want to say that an author is representative of their entire community. And we've published about a dozen Korean stories at this point, and I would hate to draw a conclusion from 12 stories for an entire community. I don't think it would be fair. But I'm glad that you are happy that we've done that. Our readers absolutely loved them, and like I said, I hope we do many more. But I think you're probably more qualified to tell me.
I thought I'm Korean, so I cannot see Korean sci-fi objectively, or I just wonder how the others see Korean fiction, because for me it's wonderful and they're all funny, interesting, but is it for Western people too?
Well, I think that the reaction that we had seen was, these are good stories. And one of the reasons we deliberately don't do theme issues is that we don't want to create this bubble where it's, the only reason you published that was because it was from Korea, or you only published it because, no, I published it because it's a good story. Right. And our readers are actually resonating with that. Like I hear that they're like, oh, loved the story in the issue this month. And sometimes they'll say, we love the translation in this. But they're recognizing it as a translation because we say translated by. We were very careful to credit the translators. I think that's very important. They're a crucial part of the community. And why I was a little upset about Emily Jin's name being spelled wrong on the Yugo ballot. But the end result is, I think that's our sort of our message, the way we're trying to deliver it, is that we don't want to say that it's a Korean story. It's a good story. Right. And they like the themes are pretty universal. Mm. You know the thing that's distinctive? Names. That's it. There's we consider them compatible with anything else we're publishing. So what makes a Clarkesworld story a Clarkesworld story? I have no idea. I liked it. basically it.
That's perfect answer. Thank you.
Yep.
Hello. So you obviously see a lot of short science fiction, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Thinking back over the past 10 years or so, what are the trends currently in short science fiction? If there is, are there things people are doing that is new that they didn't do before, things people used to do that isn't happening anymore?
When I think of trends, the two trends that are dominant right now, like very dominant, are climate and AI. Those are the two big trends that we're getting in stories that are coming in. I don't think there's anything even close to competing with them. And these are trends that, the AI stories have changed in the last 2 years, but they were happening before ChatGPT and everything like that. It's fun. We're getting some sort of response stories in regards to large language models. And one of the stories we published is actually what happens if we push this too far in the wrong direction. Like if we published a story, Andrea Kriz, I'm losing the title in my head right now, but the whole premise of the story is, what if we decide that we're going to shut down generative AI so much so that we say that the original artist controls who can make anything from their work, not just humans, not just AI, but humans as well. And so you end up with this sort of environment where the original artist is sort of a dictator over different types of art. And it's one of those things where, it's not like, this is not going to happen, but it's a fun thought experiment. And so we'll see things like that.
We have time for probably 2-3 more questions, if anybody else.
Back to the AI topic. I gotta have the mic now, oh my goodness. I wanted to ask, when it comes to reading submissions, and I can tell that you're very enthusiastic about hitting AI, and like you get a lot of AI submissions. I want to know, how can you tell that it's made by AI compared to a real person?
Okay. Well, sometimes they leave in the prompt. All right. So I generally don't give the exact tells, but I can tell you that because I don't want to make it easier for them, and I don't know. This is being broadcast, I think. So I'm not going to go into too much detail there. But I will say that I'll give an example of a story that was common a year ago. We're not seeing as many of them right now. In the year 2251, the Earth's environment is in collapse. I mean, it's just that kind of drama level. 3 scientists can save us. And then they go on for several paragraphs detailing what the 3 scientists look like. All right? This is a 1,200-word story, and we're now 4 paragraphs in, and we know what they look like. So the next paragraph, and they've solved the problem. Not how. They've just solved it. So it's skipping over various things. It's a very, the story, it's proper grammar, proper spelling, everything's, and, they solved the problem, and then the rest of the story is the party, like the end of Star Wars, where they're getting medals for saving mankind, and our moral to the story has to be in there as well. And that is the quality of work we're seeing from some of these. Now that was the trend prompt for a while. The trends come and go. A lot of them start with Once Upon a Time, but so do a lot of stories. But in the year 2251 was really popular. But no, they're very bad. So one of the things I tell people is that it's a statistical model. It's saying what's the most likely next word. It does not understand what it is writing. Therefore, it is incapable of adding subtext or layers to a story. Your best stories that you read are operating on multiple levels. And these do not operate on anything other than the next most likely word. So they're boring, they are flat, they're they're the average of of the internet, which makes them about as bad as as you can go. I describe them as having been bad in ways that no human has been bad before. But when they upgraded the software, suddenly they were now at the level of as bad as the worst human we've seen in 17 or 18 years. So I'm not worried about the quality being a problem for some time. I think there's some major technological hurdles that they need to resolve first. My main problem is that this is spam. And that it's just too much noise in the room. It was like if all of you were talking and, two of us were trying to have a conversation without our microphones, we wouldn't be able to have that conversation. It would be too loud, too noisy. I think I generally describe it as a room full of screaming babies because that's more what it feels like. But it's fairly easy to recognize that there's something going wrong. There are very clear tells. There are phrases it likes to use, like in the year 2251, that find their way in. There's also some techniques that people have been using to interfere with generated stuff by misleading it, so that when they copy and paste the guidelines in, it tells it to add a porcupine. And then you're like, oh, why is this porcupine in the middle of this space battle? It's like, but we were doing that for a while. We're not doing that anymore because we've blocked it from even seeing that. But it's one of those things where I've been reading these things reading submissions for over 17 years, and they're pretty obvious. It's unfortunate that the detection software can't replicate that yet. There's some promising newcomers, but the big detection tools that are out there have some significant problems, particularly with ESL authors, and that is a crowd we try to encourage to submit. And if we were using these tools to help us detect, it would be a bloodbath.
I was curious if you could tell us about a story that, a submission that you read and you looked at and you went, ooh, what was it? I mean, what was an example? Something you've already published, I assume, so you're not spilling anything, but just something that pops into your mind.
Ultimately, I want to say that happens with all of the ones we end up publishing, because we've just gone through hundreds of other stories that were not to that caliber, and we're like, oh, this is the one I want. This is the shiny thing in the pile, and mine. So there's a lot of stories. My brain tends to be a few issues ahead of where we are today. So but there's always a recent story we did. First-time author. I will say this: every editor I know loves to publish someone's first story, and we published a recent one, "Hello, Hello, Hello," which is about it's a first contact story, a very unusual first contact story that's very heartwarming in some ways. It's kind of cute, but it's a first sale, one of those things where it resonated very well with our readers, those moments when you can get a first sale, and not only did you get the first sale, but now your readers are responding positively to it. It's really nice. Another author, Tia Tashiro, had a story last year. I'm blanking on the title. Hold on a second. This is the nice thing about having everything on my phone. One of the common threads I'm seeing right now online, it was her first story to us, and seeing our readers going, oh, she didn't make the Yugo ballot. Like, that's nice. That's nice. Like they were really pulling for her, and she's doing some amazing things right now. If I can.
We can probably do another question. Wow.
Yeah.
we can do another question while he's searching if somebody has a
To
question.
carry you inside you. That's it. To carry you inside you was the name of the story.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
So are we good? We have no further questions? Oh, there's a hand.
Wondered, I saw something on Twitter that.
I'm sorry.
I know, thanks. Should I not be writing in Google Docs because it's being scraped and stuff, or am I fine? What do you think of that?
I'm seeing conflicting information about whether or not stuff in Google Docs is. I would err on the side of caution. Particularly if you're concerned about that. I am, except that I do most of my writing in Word, so I will sometimes share some notes via Google Docs inside for magazine purposes. But it's usually like marketing text or something that I really don't care because I'm going to post it online anyway. But yeah, I've heard those stories. I'm not sure to what extent that is being done or whether or not it's something that can be turned off. So my attitude is I might not like AI, but you can do whatever you want in your house. All right? So, feel free to play with it. Just don't send it to me. We're good. It's like I said, my background's in technology. I think it's a very interesting thing. There's some amazing applications that can be done for this. Some very positive things like early detection of cancers and discovering exoplanets and also all sorts of things that these are being used for that are productive and not hurting anybody. I love to see more of that happening. You see them go and stand up and testify at a government, and the first thing out of their mouths will be, "Oh, this will cure cancer." It's like, are you working on that? No. So I would love to see more of the uses that move things forward rather than step on the rest of us.
Well, if that's all the questions, Neil, it was lovely to see you again. Thank you so much for being here. Can we get a round of applause for Neil, please?
Thank you all.
All right, go forth. Have fun. Have a lovely con. Thank you so much.
And if I owe any of you a card, please stop by.